Hi, everyone, and welcome back. This is our third week of Inside Mental Health. If you've missed any of our previous episodes, they're all available on our Facebook page. Inside Mental Health is a project by Mental Health First Aid Israel, which is an organization that offers courses to the general public to get them education, understanding, and the training that they would need to support someone in a mental health crisis. I assume at this point you probably know a bit about Mental Health First Aid Israel if you're watching this, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but you can check out our Facebook page to look more. Today, I'm here with the incredible Yael Kaner, who is going to share her story of losing her son, Eliyahu Natan Kasorla. I hope I got that right.
Got it.
Who she lost to mental illness, specifically bipolar, in March. Yael is also a member of the Mental Health First Aid Israel team. We're very lucky to have her, and we're very lucky to have her here tonight sharing her story with us. So to start us off, Yael, can you kind of just tell us what brought you to Mental Health First Aid Israel?
I was so fortunate because as I was going through the grieving process, I started going online and looking for mental health information and other people to coordinate with because I didn't want what I've gone through to stand for nothing. And I didn't want other people, other families to go through what our family has gone through. And so when I started looking around, somehow Stuart Katz found me and introduced me to Kobe, and from there relationships were born and projects. We've already had our first movie project that where we someone me came up with an idea and then we went for it, and it was 300 people were there, and people were helped, I think, if I understood correctly. So at any rate, if this story that I'm about to tell you were a Facebook status, it would be it's complicated for sure. Um, I had three sons, and Eliyahu is the middle. See, I'm still in I don't know where. He's the middle son, and the older son's a rabbi, and he's a teacher and living in Florida, and has an amazing family, five kids, including a set of twins. And his younger brother is also a rabbi, but a different kind. The first son in Boca, he's a Sephardic rabbi, and the bottom son is a straight up Litvak of the Mir tradition, because it must once again come through the genes, because my family's from Kovno, Lithuania. So he inherited that intellectual tradition. So I have these two amazing sons. And in the middle, I also had an amazing child, but a child with challenges. So Eliyahu was born in San Francisco. I was a young Rebbitzin in a Sephardic community. And the first child, there would have been no more, because he was all consuming. From the moment he was born, he was different. He was wired differently. He didn't sleep. He didn't eat. He was hypersensitive, labels on your clothes, really a sensory child. And he was a challenge. It was really very different. The first child I called Robo Child because he just rolled right through childhood, right into smicha, just rolled. Everything was so easy. Well, Eliyahu was not like that. He would do things that no other child in our family would do. And it came that we started to say, well, of course he wins every time, because he would go to that place. When they say don't go there, well, he'd go there all the time. And so with school, I was always called to school. If we were in camp, there would be a thing on the microphone, the rabbi saying, "Would the mother of this child please come get this child?" Because he would wander away, and sometimes he wandered in front of a bus. He was like 18 months. Another time, he decided to plug in the iron with the babysitter there, and blew up the couch. Like flames. Um, so, and another time he gave his Colombian mitzvah pellet. He gave her the slip at the park, and at like no more than 18 or 25 months, not very old. He left the park on his own. So I said, "Donde está Eli?" And she said, "No, aquí." I said, "Parque, no. Mi casa, no." Ay, caramba. So on Shabbos. My husband's running around town, wearing his jalabia because he just ran from the table. Jalabia being a Moroccan outfit. And so I was always, he had this risk taking streak that he just didn't resist. Oh, yeah. I came into his room when he wasn't too old, maybe under two, and he had disassembled his entire crib. He was sitting on the floor, just, proud of himself because he had taken out every single screw in that thing. And he was sitting just on the mattress in the middle of all of this hardware. Um, he was the kid that would, open up powder and I'd go upstairs and there'd be this white face just sitting in the hallway, so proud of himself. Um, well, as he went to school, we started realizing that at ADHD. I knew that because he used to run around in circles like crazy, just whatever. But he had a brilliant mind and he also had a photographic memory. So at the age of 8, he gave, in the middle of the night on Shavuot, he gave an entire shiur from memory about the Book of Ruth to the women's sisterhood um, of our shul. So yeah, at the time we were living, we had moved from San Francisco when he was about 2 and came to Montgomery County, and we were there for almost 18 years. We built a Sephardic, with the help of the community, of course, a Sephardic shul, and so he was very involved in all of that. Um, it was a family, everybody was involved in the building and the running of the shul and programs and whatever. We were just there. We practically lived in the shul. So with his brilliant mind, he oh my goodness, he was just a character, like he was a walking encyclopedia. I would say to him, "Where'd you hear that?" And he would give me chapter and verse exactly where he heard it. If it was a blot of Gemara, he would tell me where he saw it. Like he just was really great that way. But I didn't know that even at that young age, at 9 or 10, that he was already carrying a bunch of secrets, a lot of pain. Um, we had gone swimming. I took the boys swimming, and apparently somebody molested him in the male locker room because I couldn't go in there. It was me and 3 boys, and so the boys, when you take them, you know, somehow Ailey got away from us, and so he carried that pain with him from the time that he was about probably 9 or 10, and when he was 33, he finally told me what had happened. I said to him, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have burned the place down. There would have been no, nothing left of that place if you had told me what was going on." So basically, by the time he hit puberty, he had 2 secrets. One is that had happened and he never shared it with any of us. And the second one was that he was figuring out that he was gay. And even though, his father was an Orthodox rabbi and I was a Rebbitzin, basically I said to him, your father and I love you. Don't ever hurt yourself over this. And so basically the gay part became just 1% of whatever was going on with him. Um, Also at puberty, bipolar hit and it hit him hard. And it was very scary. And it was scary to him. It was scary to us. Um, we would see oppositional defiance disorder behavior. So it was a mixed bag. He was just a mixed bag of anxieties, and we tried every kind of medication. We went to every psychiatrist. He was in most of the major wards are in and around Maryland. It always seemed to like fall on Pesach. So like I'd end up having to make all kinds of Sephardic food and taking it to him wherever he was. And that was tough. Those were hard years because we couldn't figure out, like, some of the medicines would make him sick and some of them would give him side effects that were horrible, and it was really hard. um, at When he was about 14 or 15, we were asked to come to Long Island, to a very prestigious congregation in Long Island. And after 18 years in Washington, we were ready to go back to New York, where we had met and where our family, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, were there at the time. So we went and took this congregation, said goodbye to Washington, which was hard because everybody knows you and they know all your quirks. And then by the time when you go to a new congregation, it's a whole new story. Um, so we were asked to go on a singles cruise to the Bahamas. And I was in charge of the kashrut, so I was in the kitchen all the time. And the rabbi was giving his classes. And Ailey decided to swallow an entire bottle of all the medicines we brought for 2 weeks. So he got very sick on the cruise. We thought we were going to lose him. At one point, I really thought he was gone. I really thought he was going to like go. Um, this old cruise line, we told the captain what was going on. There was a doctor on board. They made this cruise. They suddenly this big old boat starts just racing across, to get to the Bahamas. We get there and we're met by ambulance and police, and we go to the hospital in this third world country, and we don't understand what's going on. And the four of us are sleeping in the hotel, not even in the hotel room. We were sleeping on the floor of the hospital and praying that he would be okay because he was out cold. Um, so they gave him things to stabilize him. That was the first, aside from all the risk taking behavior and all the things that he used to do that were dangerous. Um, this was the first suicide attempt. So altogether in his life, there were 4 suicide attempts. Um, Around this same time, okay, so all this happened. He was hospitalized. We were trying to take care of him. Um, at some point, the marriage just broke apart after 24 years. I mean, it just, and I took the kids back to Washington, D.C. I got him back, and I had all kinds of problems with him, all kinds of hospitalizations, and the police would come and take away like 10-inch, 12-inch long knives. Um, and it was a really hard thing to manage him. Um, yeah, it got hard. Then he did something on one of his furloughs out of the institution. What he did is he put a keystroke program. I forgot to mention he was also a computer genius. So he was an early adapter. We were one of the first families to have an Apple. Um, he was amazing and smart about putting networks together and all kinds of stuff. But what he did with me is I had received a settlement from the sale of our house, which was basically my divorce settlement. And that was meant to go, for the rest of my life. Take care of the boys, take care of myself, whatever, whatever. He put a keystroke program on my computer and was able to get my password. And he was able to take $250,000, which is $250,000, out of my bank, the only money I had in this world, and he put it into the forex because he figured I know how to do that. I've seen someone else do it. I can do it. Um, and within a week, maybe less, all of my money was gone. Everything I had. And that is actually something that will affect me for the rest of my life because, good, this now, but money you have early in your life tends to, because of compound interest, the miracle, accumulate. It's very hard to lose $250,000. And let me tell you, but here's why I'm telling you about this, because so many people came to me and said, you really need to press charges. And I said, I can't criminalize mental illness. I can't do that to him. If I have the police go after him, throw him in prison, his life is essentially over. And so it was heartbreaking to have to make this decision, to be in trouble, to have creditors calling me all the time. I mean, for things that he did. I mean, he ran up credit card bills like crazy. But this is all in mania, when he was really not well. So I dealt with all that, and I didn't have any kind of credit standing for years. And that thank God I'm industrious because I was able to at least get back on my feet. And I married my husband, and I love him for this because he married me. The second husband married me knowing that I had nothing. He married me for me. Well, whatever. Okay. So what I wanted to tell you is that what he did is he pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he spent 5 years in the U.S. Army, in the closet, in the U.S. Army, working in psyops because he was interested in psychology. So psyops is psyching people out. So he served his country, America. He was a very big patriot. He was very, very good. But in Ailey style, I only found out after he passed away, he was AWOL at the end. He had left the base, left no forwarding address, just left the army, had enough, just see you. Um, and he was terrified in his mind. And if he would have told me, I would have told him. He he was terrified that they were looking for him, so he stayed so far under the radar, living a very quiet life, and they weren't looking for him very hard. So so he wasted a worry, as Lucy would say in Peanuts. I wasted a worry. Um, so one of the things that happened in the army is that his body was totally broken, like because he was only maybe 5'4", 5'5", like he's a little guy, and being in the army ruined his back, ruined this, ruined that, and then towards the end of his army service, he had a car crash, and that caused migraines so much so that he had to have Botox in his head, and so he was in a lot of pain. Well, eventually he settled down. Story picks up, settles down to a very quiet life in New Hampshire. He's met someone in Georgia. They eventually, when things got legal, were one of the first couples to go and get married. And for 14 years, he still did things that were self-destructive, and he still had his phases in and out. But his partner was extremely patient with him, and even though sometimes, frustrated with him, he did the therapy thing, and they tried to do it and make it really work out. The best thing that he did during that stable period, that 14 years or so, is that when my mom went septic, she had her shoulder replaced, and then eventually her body turned on her and she got really sick, and we almost lost her. And I was told to fly in, and I flew in. While I was on the plane, she was like basically dying. He found her, stopped it, nursed her back to health, monitored her medication like a nurse. Like he was amazing. We used to say she can't drop a Kleenex where he isn't there to pick it up underneath. Like he was so devoted to her, and so he got a very quiet life out of this, and so he became my mother's like caretaker, like a watchman. And he became the glue in our family. He got to know all of the cousins and my aunts and uncles, and so he became very, very much a family man. And I don't think he knows how much he would be missed. Um, he was very close to my sister, and they used to text like all day long, like teenagers. They're so cute. But she misses him so bad. She misses. At one point, I said, I think you knew him better than I did, and I think you were closer to him. Um, Overall, there were 4 suicide attempts, and basically the last suicide attempt came in a really crunchy part of his life. He was 33, going on 34. Most of the things that he had tried in life, he'd go to nursing school for like a month. He'd go to law school for like a week. Like he would go somewhere. He would get into something that was really hard. And he said it was his goal, and then he'd like, okay, I don't like this, and he'd just go on and do something else. Um, when he was in his last phase of life, he was working as a campaign aide for Mayor Pete. Now, I don't know how much you know about American politics, but Mayor Pete is a very liberal Democrat, first gay candidate. Um, and he was supposed to be the bright light of the Democratic Party. Ailey went to work as a campaign aide. He worked in 3 states. He was known for like hard charging, just like getting everything done and making other people as like Ailey's army. Um, that's how they remember him in the campaign office. So what happened is he wasn't sleeping. He was traveling on the road. He was in 3 different states. He was in Georgia. He was in Maine. He was in New Hampshire. With these rallies, it's always very exciting. And then Mayor Pete decides to drop out. He knew he didn't have the background. Well, for a person who's on a high like that, down. My last conversation with him was, will you support Mayor Pete? And I said, no. No. Politically, he and I are poles and poles apart. And Ailey took that so personally. You're not helping me. It's basically, it was like a messiah complex. This guy's going to fix everything. And he stopped talking to me. Well, he's done that in years past. He would just stop talking to me and say, well, you're not my real mother. Your sister's the mother I should have had. No, no, you couldn't have picked a better mother, Ailey. And I always gave him space, to let him work through this stuff. And then he would see me and he'd melt onto me and become the barnacle. I used to call him the barnacle when he was a baby. A barnacle is an animal that attaches itself to a boat. Boat can't go anywhere without the barnacle. So that's how it was with him. So I gave him space, and that was basically the last time that I spoke to him. Was over that. But I knew that were I to come to America, he would just be all over me, like he always was. And practically jump in my lap. Honey, you're 30. you know. He was very loving. Um, so on March 11th, which is sadly also my mother's birthday, my 83-year-old mother's birthday, um, he thought after his last campaign trip that while he was while he was out of town, his relationship was falling apart at home, and so that was ending. And um, basically, um, he took muscle relaxants. This is where the story is hard for me because I try not to envision too much of this. He took muscle relaxants, went for a run in the forest. He had carved out these beautiful trails around their house. And he basically went down near the river, the Merrimack River, which I grew up on and he was very fond of. He was living in a different part of it, but loved the river. Um, and he just basically took too many and decided to end it. Before that, he had texted my sister that he had run out of runway. He felt that he didn't have any other choices. My sister said, you can move to Florida with me. You can go to Israel with your mother. You can do anything you want. And he wouldn't hear of it, wouldn't hear of it. So basically, that was the last um, of him. I buried him on FaceTime. And then when I buried him, the rabbi at the cemetery told a story. We had gotten in touch with Chabad of New Hampshire and Rabbi Krinsky and what a mensch. And he said to me, I have something for you. And I didn't know what it was. And he sent it to me. It was a picture. Ailey had knocked on all the doors. And ironically, he knocked on Rabbi Krinsky's door, not knowing it was his Chabad house, not knowing anything about Rabbi Krinsky at all, because I kept saying to him, you should make contact with Rabbi Krinsky, you should go for Shabbos. He was raised from, so, he knows these things. He wouldn't even allow, even to his last day, he wouldn't allow trade stuff into his house, that he shared with his partner. He wouldn't have pork in the house. He wouldn't have shellfish, just wouldn't do it. It was just, no. And he was the frumest non-frum person you'll meet. But at any rate, what Rabbi Krinsky had for me, Ailey said, I want to tell you about Pete Buttigieg. He said, well, if you're going to tell me about Pete Buttigieg, I want you to lay tefillin, like a good Chabad rabbi. So Ailey said, bring it on. So the last picture I have of Ailey is of him laying tefillin, wearing tefillin, reading from the Siddur, picture of the Rebbe, same one I have behind me. And I'll treasure that picture. And Rabbi Krinsky said, and something else about him. My daughter came to get me after he left. And she said, you're not going to believe what this kid did. Ailey had shoveled out his entire driveway after a snowstorm before he left the house. And there's a picture of him standing there with a shovel doing a mitzvah because he was known for that. He may not have been quote unquote frum, but he would go around town. He would give away loaves of bread. He was known in my mother is in like a 55 plus community. He was known there. Everybody loved him. They wanted an Ailey, So when I lost him, I buried him on FaceTime, and nobody should ever have to do that. It was very painful. And in many ways, your brain doesn't assimilate that it's really happened yet. I have to remind myself often, that, yeah, this happened. During the shloshim, first when we got the phone call, my husband says, it's about Ailey. I said, is he gone? He says, yes. And I don't know what made me ask him that, but after 4 suicide attempts, yeah, that's what happened. So I basically didn't talk for a month. And literally, I sat on the swing and I called it my swinging meditation. And I just sat there and looked at Jerusalem from Ma'ale Adumim. We have this amazing view of the backside of Mount of Olives. And I was quiet and I thought, what can I do? What is going to make a difference in this world? Something that I can do that will bring together all the experiences I've had plus this huge loss. What can I do? There's so much pain in the world. I want to do something. So it came to me that I should take my Rebbitzin skills, take my momming skills. Before COVID, I had a company called Bubby on Call. So I would go all over Israel. Wherever I was needed, I was Bubby to whoever needed me. Parents would go away to, China and, Bulgaria, all kinds of places. And I would stay home with their kids and keep things running and be the Bubby. So I took all these skills and I went to the Jerusalem Coaching Institute run by Dr. Leah Gniwesch, and just amazing because I had to go through the whole coaching process myself. And I was only 8 weeks from losing him. And it was hard in the beginning. I had to stand up in front of the class and say why I was there and what I was hoping to get out of it. And everybody couldn't have been more loving, more amazing. And so basically, we took apart my soul. And 5 months later, I popped out in September. I was a coach. After having gone through that and coaching other people, it was really intense, but it really worthwhile. So it's my attempt to take care of some of the darkness in the world by shining some light, by giving some hope, by being there. And so that's how I'm dealing with my love and my loss. I have all this love left and all this loss to deal with. And this is how I'm doing it. And so when I sit in the garden now, my husband planted flowers and butterflies come. And I always told Ailey, because I never wanted him to feel alone when he was young, I said, well, someday Ima's not going to be here for you. I thought I'd be the one to go first. I said, well, when you see a butterfly, say, hi, Ima. And so now when I sit in the garden and butterflies come by, I say, hi, Ailey, and that's my way of remembering him. And so we started a number of projects. One is we started Ailey's Mitzvot, a WhatsApp group where we share things that we're doing to elevate his neshama. And the second thing that I have is a soup gamach. It was dedicated by a family in honor of their father, who passed away, Rabbi Chigger. But Eliyahu loved to give away food. So it suits, it's now about him too. And then lastly, I'm hoping to work with mental health first aid Israel as an instructor in any community that needs me. If I could be Bubby on call, then I can also organize and help and take away some of the pain and give some hope to some other families, and learn about the resources that we have here and try and save some lives. If Ailey had reached out, if he had only told me how he was feeling, I don't think he would have done it. I don't know. I'll never know now, but this is what it is. So this is my little blonde-haired boy who I love so much, the brother of rabbis, a special holy person in his own right who did good when he could after doing really bad, but ended up leaving a nice legacy. And that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. And I think as you were talking, one of the things that really struck me was how well you knew your son. And I think what a special relationship it sounds like you had. And I am sure that that meant the world to him. And I think that there's so much that people can learn from you. And I think we're so lucky to have you involved in all of this.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm always open to talk to anybody, anytime, day or night.
I do have a question. There's also a question that someone wrote here in the comments. Do you think that the bipolar was related to the sexual assault on Ailey's worries about possibly being gay, or was it clinical?
It was definitely clinical, wired in. I have a grandmother who I didn't know all that well because she left us when I was a child in 71. Um, she was bipolar. They said she maybe had schizophrenia too. I don't know. She had 6 children. She had a tumultuous life. Um, my father suffered a lot from her bipolar, so I was very familiar with bipolar, and he's the one that it touched. I used to say he didn't ask for this. It just was. Just, we accepted him.
Yeah. Okay, so my final question for you is, having gone through all of this and knowing everything you know now, what's the one piece of advice that you would share?
Don't stop. Don't stop trying with them. Don't give up. Don't give up. There's a yid in there, a pencil yid in there. No matter how far away they seem they are, no matter how much the mental illness has carried them away, they're still in there. And you can't stop. It's your kid.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight and sharing with us. And, I think that a lot of people are going to find a lot of strength from you sharing your story.
And don't forget the funny parts. Not my story, but I'm saying about your story, because there's good parts too. As even with all the sorrow and the difficulty, there's still good parts.
I think that's such an important thing. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And as always, if anyone would like to reach out to Mental Health First Aid Israel, you can always contact us through Facebook. We have all of our contact info there. I'm sure if anyone wants to reach out to Yael, they can find her info there as well. So thank you all for this.
Good night.